Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Castabris. My name is Christian Cawley, and with me this week are James McLean and Brian Terranova. And we are here to watch Doctor Who, the TV movie from 1996. It is 30 years since the Eighth Doctor. We would like you to watch along with us if you feel the need. So we've got our DVDs queued up, or our feeds, or whatever, and we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Now, in the UK, this went out on Bank Holiday Monday, roughly 30 years ago as this podcast goes out. And I remember sitting down to watch this. I'm intrigued as to whether you did, James.
Yeah, I did. What on the BBC when
Yeah.
it was like, yeah. I remember it quite well.
Yeah, I do as well. It was by far and away the best thing on TV that night.
Yeah, and it went down well in
It
the UK.
went down very well. Brian, when did you first see this?
I saw it when it aired in the US. Oddly enough, I had grown up with Doctor Who. We've talked about this in the past. So I did watch Doctor Who in the 80s, but it kind of went away from PBS for a while. And when I rediscovered it in the 90s, it was like 94, 95 or something like that. So when this was announced on Fox, I saw it as like a gift to me for having rediscovered the show. So I was there the night this thing aired. I recorded it too. And it's funny, myself and my buddy Paul both recorded it. And we did that thing where you try and pause for the commercials. I guess you guys didn't have to do that on BBC, but we would pause for the commercials. And there was this one point that happens later on when they get to the banquet where they're unveiling the atomic clock. And neither one of us had hit record because we thought it was a commercial, because all the balloons, the way they came into it, we thought we were still in a commercial. And we both were like, did you get, like, let me see your copy. Did you get this scene? And for years, that was all we had to watch, was that. So like anytime I see it back on DVD and see that scene, I can't not think of that. Anyway, yeah, I watched it opening day. There you go, to answer your question.
Is it just worth saying? Because I mean, I know we've always traditionally talked about the listener, but we may have different listeners now, or even a regenerated listener, and just point out that, you know, we've known Brian for many, many years, and this guy suddenly popped up. If you've been listening to this or watching on Patreon for the last year or so, Brian is actually significantly quite important to what we do, even though we don't see him much. Is it worth mentioning that, Christian?
We can't mention that. I mean, this is going on
Good,
Patreon
done.
first.
Right, let's move on.
And Brian's appeared on Patreon in the past 6 months.
He has, because he's done all the archive stuff and all the
he's done the archive
so they
stuff,
will know,
right? And the 500 stuff as well. So, but yeah, Brian, if you're newer to the podcast and you're listening to this in audio only format, Brian was the original co-host of the podcast, and then James joined us, and then many years went by, and we did a show probably every week, the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes two of us if someone wanted a break or was on holiday, whatever. And that went through to about 2020, I think, roughly speaking.
Yeah. No. Okay, Christian. No one cares about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just looking at this.
Let's talk more about me. Come on, guys.
We should.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this is the first time Doctor Who's looked like it's had money spent on it, apart from the opening sequence of the Trial of a Time Lord.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I'll be honest, I love this TARDIS set. I know some people think it's too Jules Verne. I like the vastness of it. I will say, yeah, maybe the console's a little too Jules Verne, but I don't care. I love it. The big columns, the buttresses, whatever you want to call them, that surround it as a central column. I love everything in this console room. It's so cool.
Have we just seen actually probably one of the very few sort of proper close-ups, sort of extreme close-ups of the needle? In Doctor Who, you never get extreme close-ups, do you, in the old show? I can't think of many, apart from maybe the sonic screwdriver and Troughton doing a step. But, you know, that sort of level of camera work is different as well.
Well, I think the direction throughout is pretty good, to be honest with you. I mean, it again, it looks like money's been spent on it, but we've got a good director in Jeffrey Sachs, who'd done a lot of, mostly known for comedy work before this in the UK. And I mean, it looks superb. I'm going to just, there's something going on screen now, and we all know what this is, but I'm interested in something that Brian was telling me about beforehand, Brian, and this is to do with the timing.
Yes. Oh, perfect. We're at a timing malfunction.
Exactly.
Let's talk about timing right now. Close to the timing malfunction. But anyway, Yeah, the interesting fact, and a lot of listeners, I'm sure, will know this, but when you all watch this for the opening day in the UK on the BBC, to any home media that you have gotten, and by the way, you got it on VHS, we never did. We didn't get it on DVD until like 2011 or 2012 or something like that, and we never got it on Blu-ray. But every version that was released in the UK and the one that aired on the BBC is sped up. It's about 3 to 4 minutes too fast, because the episode was made and broadcast in NTSC format here in North America and Canada. And when it was sent over to England, it was converted to PAL, and the different frame rates sped up the episode by 3 to 4 minutes. So right. You have never actually heard this with Paul McGann's actual voice or the music in the actual pitch that it's supposed to be in.
Wow.
They're now, for the 30th anniversary, they've gone back and they're remastering from the original prints finally, because Christian and I talked a little bit in the beginning too. I have this on DVD. I do not have it on Blu-ray, because it wasn't sold here. And James asked me, why didn't I just import it in? Because the Blu-ray version is not a true HD copy of the TV movie. It's just an upscale of the DVD version, which is a PAL conversion of the NTSC format. So it's not true HD. However, they're releasing now on Blu-ray and I think 4K this remastered version, which I'm hoping, since it's exclusively also for England too, I think we might be getting it, but I know England's exclusively getting it. I'm hoping they're going to retime it so that it's 3 to 4 minutes longer and you actually can hear Paul McGann's voice. I mean, anybody who's ever heard Big Finish knows that it's weird hearing Paul's voice in this story and in the opening narration, because he just doesn't sound like himself. But yeah, you guys have never seen the TV movie in its original time or sound.
But you
forget the edits that you had on the BBC.
But you have.
I have because I watched it when it aired, and I taped it off TV. I've always had the original, until the DVD came out, and then it was like, what's going on with this voice?
Wow.
Because I was so used to my VHS copy.
No, there's something in. Sorry, yeah. I just want to jump in because there's something interesting about that. When Brian mentioned this to me earlier on, and then he's explained it further. My copy of GoldenEye, I think, has the same issue, because when I saw there's a difference between GoldenEye that I've seen on TV and GoldenEye that I saw at the cinema. The GoldenEye that I saw at the cinema, Pierce Brosnan's voice is lower, considerably lower than what it is when I saw it on TV later on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it could very well be. I can tell you, if anybody has the Torchwood Miracle Day DVD or Blu-ray in the UK, you also have sped up versions of that.
Wow. Because
Miracle Day was made for an American audience, and the NTSC conversion to PAL did the same exact thing for that. The odd thing is, when we get Doctor Who, as far as I can tell, released here in the US, the PAL to NTSC conversion doesn't seem to do the opposite. It doesn't seem to extend it and make it slower, right, or more bombastic in the voice, I guess. It's weird. I don't know why, but I know those do that. So that James Bond one could absolutely have done it. Yeah. I'm sure it has to happen more often than we think, just with these few examples,
So I was just television generally coming from US, especially when we're looking at periods of PAL at NTSC. Does that mean all our stuff was running at a different frame rate? I'm just thinking of all those traditional shows that we would get broadcast.
Star Trek.
Everything is absolutely running at a different frame rate, whether or not the conversion for your home media was done to compensate for that. I don't know, because there is a way to compensate for that. And to be honest, some fans online did compensate for that. And there's a version of the movie you can get online. I probably shouldn't say that, but there is, that has pitch corrected it. Pitch and time corrected it, right? Because everybody wants to look at the fans who are correcting the Star Wars, the original trilogy. They're despecializing them, right? Fans will do everything to get things back to the way that they should be, or the way that they aired. So I don't know. Like, honestly, I would be very curious if any of you have, like, say, the X-Files on DVD. I'd like to hear what a British DVD sounds like, because undoubtedly, if it wasn't converted correctly, everything would be pitched higher there as well. maybe if you saw the movie in the theater, it would be different, where you'd be like you had, Christian, why is Mulder's voice so deep now all of a sudden, you know? But yeah, your VHS copy, I know they sort of did a remaster again for DVD, but when it was released on VHS, when it was released on DVD and Blu-ray, it's all just the same sped up copy. They have never corrected that. And the sad reality is that my DVD copy, which you can't see because that weird background I put on has made it disappear. There you go.
All right.
It is the PAL version. So what I have here on DVD is the sped up version. So I'm watching this specifically because it will be timed to whatever you're watching.
Well, I was going to
because
ask.
They have not released an NTSC version here in the US. Like, even though it aired here, it was made for here.
Crazy, isn't it?
We never had it. We never got it properly released here. Hopefully with this new remaster they're doing, we'll get it. But it's so weird. We never even got a VHS release here. So I for years all I had was my off-air copy.
I feel the problem with this is there's so many things to talk about. I mean, we've obviously gone past the scene that was edited for the US audiences.
Oh,
right. Yeah, the UK,
the UK audiences shooting, the gang shooting.
That was cool, yeah.
Which is weird because again, you get that rhythm in your head from having it on a VHS and you're used to seeing that choppy cut there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've also missed the snake going into the arm of the jacket with the very clear. It doesn't quite work. You can see that there's something inside.
Oh no! Wait.
Did
you guys? It's just happening right now, isn't it? Are we not in sync?
In mine, it's happening right now.
There you go.
Because I'm on the BBC. I'm wondering if the BBC have done the cut.
You might have the edit. I see.
Yeah, because I was thinking the rhythm of that of the shooting wasn't quite great. So what I'll do is I'll pause mine just to get back into sync with you.
Yeah. We've just had
I was going to say, like,
Grace dialogue in the
you guys had it. You had it aired with those edits because of something that had just recently happened in the news.
That's right.
And then later on, in like 1999, when they did the Doctor Who BBC night, they aired the unedited version. But what they did remove, which is another thing that my original VHS copy had, but no other store-bought one has, is there's a bit of text at the beginning of the episode that says, based on the original science fiction series aired on the BBC.
Right.
You guys never had that, but your version that aired in 1999 was the corrected cut, not time corrected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's weird, James, that you're able to watch one that's still the edited version.
Well, this is the BBC iPlayer that they've got on the iPlayer, and it's interesting that they've decided, or had to, who knows which, use because I did feel I was expecting, because I have seen the 1990, the unedited, but the one I'm used to is the one that I used to have on VHS, which was the cut, and I was expecting the rhythm to shift, and there was a bit of a jankiness, and I was thinking, oh, maybe my mind's going crazy here, because there's no way they would have the edited one in 2026. But
I just wanted to mention Eric Roberts. He does not get enough credit for it, I don't think. He's playing a basic NPC ambulance driver, and then he's the master later on. He's an actor who doesn't get a lot of credit, I think.
I actually agree with that, and I think one thing they also don't give him credit for is that there was an element of the script that they dropped a little bit, which was that his body was supposed to be slowly decaying over the course of the story. The only thing that was kept was that bit where he peels off his fingernail.
Yeah.
So people talk about his portrayal being bland or wooden or whatever, but in the beginning, he literally says it. It took me a minute with the walking and the talking. He was trying to take over that body, and I think that's great because he plays Bruce. Then he plays this kind of I'm trying to figure out this body kind of version of the master, and then he's full master after that, and I think he's great. Another thing I wanted to point out though was it's 1999, right? And this was made in 95 for 96, I guess. It's not that far off, but I like how they tried to make like futuristic things a little bit, like these headdresses they're wearing in the surgery and these masks. They're not like common stuff that you see in medical dramas. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit unique. I like that there is still a little bit of a touch that it is slightly futuristic, even though it was only like 4 years futuristic at the point.
Well, you see, but that's interesting because I mean, for us, it's set. It isn't based, but it's obviously set. It's set San Francisco. San Francisco, is my brain going crazy?
No, you're
Yes,
right.
it's in San
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going crazy. San Francisco. So for us, it's hard for us to sort of tell what is meant to be sort of futuristic
Mm,
American and what would
right.
have been, because we wouldn't really have that sense of when it's subtle.
Yeah. Well, you know, the funny thing is, I used to work in a hospital. I used to work in an OR, and we never had. There was certain gear that you had to wear, but I've never seen these type of headdress. And these masks, I've seen something similar, but they, at least in the hospital I was at, they didn't use anything like this. But it just looked like they were trying to be a little bit different with it somehow, rather than just order basic stuff, which is a little bit interesting at the same time too, right? Like, why not just order basic things that you could for any kind of film? But it makes me feel like they were trying to give us the impression that it was 1999 rather than 1996, you know? Because it's not really that far off, but there's little things throughout when you see people that just make it still kind of feel that way. I had a chance actually. Oh, you might have aired this already, but I had a chance to ask Sylvester McCoy about this at a convention, and I asked him like, "What did you think of your death scene?" And I think from years of fans asking him at conventions, he just kind of adopts this answer, and maybe he believes it too, but he just kind of adopted this answer of what he thinks the fan wants, because a lot of fans say he should have had a heroic death. You know, he walks out of TARDIS, he gets shot, and then he dies in a hospital bed. He didn't get that heroic death like every other Doctor. And he said, I think if I had it to do all over again, I would like to have a heroic death. And I was like, you know what? I said, that's interesting. But I got to tell you, I always thought this was an amazing death scene for your Doctor, because, you know, you started one way, but then your Doctor evolved. The Seventh Doctor evolved into this perfect chess player, manipulating the board and manipulating the villains, manipulating the companions to get the end result. And the one thing that he couldn't anticipate was stepping out of the TARDIS immediately into a hail of bullets. You know, and I just thought, like, that's amazing. Like, what an amazing way for that Doctor to go out. The guy who sees everything couldn't see this one detail. So I don't know. I've never had an issue with this death scene. Did you guys ever have an issue with how he went down?
No, I
I
had the
think
same feeling.
I think I did it
Nice.
first
Yeah.
on the night, but I was quickly. It's over, isn't it? It's over for him. You know, it's going to be his last episode. You're waiting for the new Doctor to come along, so
Right.
it's not something that I dwelled upon, basically.
It's two levels of it, isn't it? On the one part of it, I don't like it because I know what you've suggested, Brian, is not what they intended.
No.
I don't get the
Right.
impression that was the sense they were saying. This is a very manipulative times champion Doctor will do
I
this.
agree. Yes, I
But
agree.
you can reconcile it as you have, and I totally agree with you. I think in a weird way, it's nice that he has absolutely the opposite sort of to all the other Doctors, because he is kind of the opposite to most of the Doctors, if not pretty much
Yeah.
all of them. Yeah.
It's like strangely poetic in a way, and I agree with you. It was definitely not meant, but it's just it's something that always read very fascinatingly to me.
Do you feel that this show was? I'm gonna play a card here. It was kind of ahead of its time, and but not in the sense of if it was done ahead of its time, they'd have done it in a way which would have made it work. But the basics are here. So what I'm thinking of is, and I know McCoy's mentioned this in interviews as well, that they should have not had him at the beginning. They should have
Right.
started off this series with McGann, and then by episode 3, running in, I'm thinking like in a 2000s sort of more prestige area, episode 3, episode 4, there would be a flashback. Or maybe there would be, without maybe even saying that this McCoy character was the Doctor, and then we'd have this story, part of this story later rather than immediate. And that might
Yeah.
have got the American audiences a little more into what this is about. Because there's no doubt that this is far too crazy as a pilot.
Right. I
Mm.
think for sure. I think for me, as much as I like this, and I was a fan of this from day one. I think there's very easily a sense all throughout this that they tried to pile on every bit of Doctor Who lore that they felt the audience needed to know within one episode, which, when you get to the 2005 series, how long it took Russell to actually
Exactly.
pepper
Yeah.
all that stuff
Yeah.
in really was so much better. So yeah, I do think in the end it ultimately was the wrong call. Do I think it failed? No. Because I think the failure was the oddity that Fox decided to do a pilot that would lead to a series. Fox usually would just greenlight even a short stack like they did with Sliders, a 13 episode season. So the oddity that they did a pilot, I think if they had done 13 episodes or a proper 24 episode season, I think it might have garnered enough attention. But the fact that they did it as a backdoor pilot, or not really a backdoor pilot, but a movie to pilot aspect, I think that's what killed it. There wasn't enough interest in it from the studio or people, because they didn't get to see more. They just went, what's this weird thing with these two guys? But if there was like another episode or two after it with just McGann, that could have worked. But certainly if they didn't use Sylvester in the beginning, it could have saved it a bit more, I think.
Well, it's the danger of the pilot, isn't it? When you have a pilot, to proof of concept. Something like Doctor Who, you feel like you've got to wedge everything in. While if you, as you say, you've got 13 to 24 episode run, you've got the space to lure people through, and you can see why they went through this route as a pilot, but you can equally see why it doesn't work through this route as a pilot as it should.
Yeah,
that's how
and
I feel
also
anyway.
the failing of when they aired it as well. They the one thing you can say about Fox is that they surprisingly seem to have a lot of faith in it. Well, they either had a lot of faith that it was going to do well, or they wanted to bury it, one or the other, because they aired it against Roseanne, which was somehow a very big sitcom over here at the time. But the particular episode that it went up against was the one where Dan had a heart attack. So it was very heavily advertised. Yeah. Were you guys were?
We were talking about series that go back and we did a podcast about revisionism basically, and how that
season was erased when it came back. But
right. And it's a shame that season was erased when it came back, and yet it's the one that basically killed Doctor Who here in America,
But I'm just thinking that if I was to do this in terms of storytelling, even if and I'm on the basis that they would have to show all the components of Doctor Who. So you can't do, as we said, leave Sylvester McCoy in the hope that you would get an episode 3 or an episode 4. I think I would have introduced the TARDIS much later, because I think for the opening 25 minutes of this story, there is so much going on that if you're not following it, especially if you're not used to this idea of this phone box, which doesn't exist in the US,
right,
holding this big time machine room, which doesn't even look futuristic. It kind of looks anachronistic in itself, with this odd little man who transforms into it. You needed to pass that out.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot.
You'd have to totally rewrite the story, but allowing them to come to the TARDIS a little bit later when McGann does with Grace, and he brings her in and he does the bigger on inside sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That seems to be the time when you introduce the TARDIS, and it's that one level up after you've had this new character turn into another person, and now you're starting to get introduced into his weird, eccentric Jules Verne world. But again, it's easy.
Well, I mean, it comes back to Rose again. Exactly the same thing. We saw the Doctor first. You get a glimpse of a police box, which by the time 2005 rolled around, people knew it because you guys have Doctor Who in your culture, but they're not freestanding anywhere but what? Earl's Court? Yeah. I think one other station has a police box, like an actual police box, not the one, Christian, you and I went to, but another one. I think you're absolutely right. I think they could have easily eased the audience into many things. Also, like delving straight into the Time Lords. The Daleks are there for no reason as well. Like, and they're not even like Dalek sounding. They give you a lot. The gold dust, which is an Easter egg, but it means nothing to anybody. Yeah.
I mean, oddly, we talk about being ahead of its time. In a weird way, the approach, in some respects, almost feels closer to how we do reboots now, where the amount of detail that they, unusually at this time they put into this, like, as Brian knows, the sonic screwdriver prop, the police box, there's the jelly babies, the master, there's a lot of attention to the history and awareness of trying to fulfill that aesthetic, which is very important now when you do reboots or you do an adaptation. But at the time, this seemed quite unusual to see such a level of lack of updating. I mean, I'm just thinking, there wasn't that many things on television, but things like Batman, kicking off the superhero franchise, everything was updated. There was very little which sat with the comics or even the Adam West show. It was all given a sort of new sense. But here, it was all very much about trying to, yes, make it look great, but really feel like it was attached to the aesthetic of the old show.
The Doctor shrouded wandering up that corridor is very John Pertwee, Tom Baker corridor opening titles. It's never really hit me before.
I
But
see what you're saying. Yeah. It's a great shot too, with the way the camera tilts as he's walking through there. There's a lot of great shots in this, actually. That's kind of where this thing excels.
It is beautiful to look at from the very beginning, from the CGI planet and the opening titles and the TARDIS, which was a model. Actually, I only found out a few years ago. I'd always assumed it was CGI. It's all beautiful.
That model never looks quite 100% accurate to the prop, to me. I don't know whether that's unfair, but the prop, I mean, this is why I'm looking at you, Brian, because it feels something that you would be. The dimensions just look it looks a little thin to me to what they actually
I mean, it could be. I'll be honest, I haven't really compared the both of them quite as much. I know that Philip Segal still has that model. You can see it on his Instagram page. He posts pictures of it quite often, so you could easily compare it. I know there were two boxes made for the film, though, two full-size boxes. One of them for the stunt prop with the motorcycle, and then one that was just a regular box.
There's also a Withnail and I reference there because Paul McGann is beautiful man, like he could preach the epistles to St. Paul or something. The epistles to the apostles. Play St. Paul preaching the epistles to the apostles, which is a Ralph Brown line from Withnail and I.
Okay, so these are other moments too, right? Like him with the scarf. Yeah. A Doctor Who fan watching that, we're obviously going to pick up on that. And I don't think those things are bad to have if you are pitching to a new audience. You know, the old ones tuning in. It hits
multiple levels, doesn't it, throughout?
Right.
And particularly the early stages. And I think some of it's too much. Some of it's nice and subtle, like this and like the scarf.
Yeah. But it is amazing, like when you watch it back, just how much they did cram in. Although I have to say, what a perfect outfit. I think Paul McGann looks amazing when he gets the full-on outfit. Even this wig, I know he hates the wig.
Yeah, I don't mind
the wig. But I think it looks great.
Well, this is because he had hair in the audition, isn't it? And then he'd shaved it off. And by the time they did the publicity, he had short hair.
Yeah.
So they made
he had to play a skinhead in a film, and he shaved it all off. And he thought, "Oh, this will be good anyway." You know, he's pretty bitter when Eccleston got away with it years later.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it looks great. I think it's a really. I think it's a right look. I think it easily would have fit in the original show. It fits the character very well. Certainly fits him very well. I love that key too. When the TV movie aired, I found out I owned that key because there was a catalog 800 Trekker, and they sold things. I had a Tom Baker scarf. Yeah.
And I had one of the two,
I bought that key from there. And I didn't know it at the time. I just thought, oh yeah, they really did a good job replicating this key, right? I didn't know it, but they bought the key from 800 Trekker. And so like a year later, my brother and I and a friend of mine, we drove out to Reading, Pennsylvania, where 800 Trekker had their warehouse, and you could go tour their warehouse. I bought another key, but they also had a police box replica there. It was the first police box that I'd ever seen in person. They let me go inside, and I stepped inside, and my brother and my friend were making fun of me because like I got in there, and I'm like, I'm in a police box. I just stood in there forever, like an idiot, you know. But I was like, this is my first police box, you know. And they're like, what the heck were you doing in there? Because I was just in there, just like I was stunned. But it was like, oh, you know, I took a wrong turn at on hallway number 3 or something. But it was pretty awesome. But yeah, they bought their key, and they actually bought the sonic screwdriver straight from 800 Trekker. But the sonic screwdriver that they bought, they used as a base to make the one that they made for the show, because the replica that 800 Trekker sold is actually pretty accurate in dimensions to the prop used in the TV movie, but it's not accurate to the prop used by Tom Baker, which it's supposed to be a replica of.
Right.
So yeah, lots of fun stuff like that. As you go through this hallway too, what I was talking about, we saw one earlier. One of the nurses was wearing this lab coat with a real high collar that looked like you would do like an alternate Earth story. That's what I'm talking about. Like that guy that just walked past. That's what I'm talking about, where they're adding some kind of like futuristic elements. People don't really wear those things.
Yeah, it's just a fascinating watching it and just thinking. I know it's a cruel way of looking at it, what I'd have done differently. I know some of the issues UK side with this, which people found, and unsurprising, British being very protective of their shows. There was a feeling of like past 30 minutes, it becomes quite Americanized in its structure. We get the car
Yeah,
chase.
yeah.
For the first time, there was obviously a romantic element that was slipping into it, which was not something which, as we know, was in the show before that. And a sense of it losing its its Britishness. And I remember those being some of the comments at the time from the UK audiences. And I
In
can sort of get
fairness,
that.
it's not a car chase for the first time. It might be the first one that has a motorcycle ramp, but I mean, John Pertwee had many car
Yeah,
Yeah,
chases.
yeah.
Certainly
It
I can
certainly
take you
wasn't
back to Planet of
recognizable as
Spiders.
Doctor Who that we'd seen since 1974. There's very little. I mean, apart from Tom Baker on a horse in The Mask of Mandragora, that's about as
Yeah,
action as it was for 20 years,
yeah.
Well,
basically.
we said the other day, Silver Nemesis is probably the first action scene when Ace versus a Cyberman.
Yeah,
You just
All
don't get
right.
anything like that prior to sort of 88.
Ace with the baseball bat against the
yeah,
Dalek.
and
That
Remembrance of
that's
Daleks.
that's almost like that's there,
It's
isn't
the
it? But
same
it's not
scene,
Yeah.
isn't it?
it's not as big as the whole hangar and those wide shots of her running across the
Oh,
hangar
yeah,
with
yeah.
it's big for Doctor Who, and then this is
Sure.
bigger.
I've got 31 minutes through this episode of Doctor Who without mentioning Daphne Ashbrook.
Yeah, I don't know how we did that, to be honest, but go on.
Well, she's having met her as I have, and I was reminded of this. I met her when I was with you, Brian, didn't I, at
Yes.
the Dimensions convention, not far from here, and she was absolutely charming. She was really nice. And then I got a message from Philip Bates a few days ago. He'd met her recently at the convention and was absolutely beguiled by her. But she's such a lovely lady, isn't she? And she's very engaging. She'll talk to the fans, and she clearly appreciates it. Um, this one show that she did, because it's given her this whole career
She's
going to cons, and she's just nice.
she's amazing. She's
Yeah,
amazing. As a person, she's amazing. I think the character is great. I like
yeah.
Grace. I've met her twice, and I made her cry the second time.
Nice, nice one,
I
Brian.
slightly feel bad about that, but it's wonderful at the same time.
Okay,
Um, the second time I told her just how great she was the first time, which is I met her with you.
right.
And when I met her there at Dimensions Convention, I told her, like I said, thank you for doing this and the Big Finish work. I said, like, I really appreciate everything you do. And she stopped and she went, "You're American." And I went, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, home," And so like I had that kind of like little moment because we were in England together, meeting for the first time. But the second time when I made her cry, I told her, I was like, "Look, I had only just rediscovered Doctor Who like a year or so before the TV movie aired. And I viewed the TV movie, as I told you guys, as this gift to myself. And I said, you're very much a part of this Doctor Who rebirth for me. Like, I can't think of Doctor Who without thinking of you. And like, you will forever be ingrained in my memory as this kind of reintroduction to Doctor Who, an amazing reintroduction to Doctor Who." And she took to that and she cried from that. And I was just like, wow, I feel awful making you cry, but I feel it's amazing too to have that kind of connection. She was just fantastic. I love her. I never met Eric though.
Do you
Now that
think?
he's on the screen.
Do you think? I mean, again, at the time, there was a bit of a pushback in the UK against Eric, the Americanized master, again,
Mm,
parochial approach to
Right.
Doctor Who. But I think also he's sporting a master which wasn't like anything before. For instance, there was no beard, which again was
yeah.
apparently a big issue for other people. And since John Sim, I always wonder, looking back, or people watching this, I'm okay. This is the fascinating question. If you're watching this as a new Doctor Who fan from 2005 and you watch this, I wonder how it sits because it must feel far more at home than maybe if you were watching it fresh in 1996
Yeah.
compared to the original show because there's so much that the 2005 borrows from this. I mean, the
Yeah.
TARDIS console room that you love, Brian, that is essentially the template for what has come since.
Absolutely. The floor to ceiling column. Yeah. The center column.
The
Yeah.
romance,
The
all
scale
the
of it.
dynamic,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
there's so many elements in here. And again, like I say, the Master is not like Delgado, Ainley, somewhere between Ainley and Sim, probably, quite frankly. I wonder
Yeah.
if I wonder if it does Roberts more justice in a lot of ways maybe he got at the time when we look at it now.
I absolutely think time has changed a lot of people's opinions, and certainly people coming at it from having watched the new series. I definitely think they view it with different eyes than people coming at it from just the original series. I will say when I watched it, what you have to remember is I watched a lot of Doctor Who at the time in the 80s, but I was a kid, right? And then in the 90s, when I rediscovered it, the two things I remember about that was, oh my God, this is that show. I've been trying to find this show because it just wasn't on PBS, and then all of a sudden it was again. And then I saw Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, and I was like, oh my God, they're still making this show. Well, they weren't. It was the 90s, right? But I never saw them. My Doctor Who experience was Pertwee through Peter Davison for the most part. Um, so when I watched this, I hadn't even seen at that point all of the classic show. Now, I might have seen more episodes than I remember, but I certainly hadn't seen them all. So seeing him be the master, seeing Paul be the doctor, and so on, I didn't have these preconceived notions. I had Ainley as the master because I had watched enough Doctor Who. I had seen Delgado as the master, but nothing like offended me that Eric Roberts was playing it. Because I hadn't seen the entire show. I didn't quite. While I think I do recall lamenting the loss of the beard a little bit. To me, the master had a beard. I kind of remember that, but I don't think I had an issue with him being American. But I know a lot of people did.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the beautiful thing about what the new show did, is it did very much force the show into new territories, which first few years a lot of fans didn't want to do. There was this dynamic between the companion and the doctor. You've got to get used to that. We've had a female doctor. We had everything is a little. Actually, I don't know. Looking at that prop, it maybe is actually. Sorry, I'm back to the prop. I'm just thinking about whether the police box prop to the police box model is close. I suppose they are probably quite close.
I mean, yeah, I know it looks like the same box. Whether or not it's too thin, like you said, I don't know. I'd have to compare.
Well, yeah.
Also, could be how the film was addressed as well.
I love was it last year or year before? There was a lovely a load of, I don't know whether a fan photos or it was a press thing of McGann with a replica of this box. Did you see those?
Oh yeah, that was a really good looking box.
Yeah.
I don't know how completely accurate it was, but it was a very good box.
It was pretty close, and it was quite battered as well, which made it feel like it was someone who had spent some time with it, as he was meant to in the outfit he was at that point. I love things like that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys this, because we keep talking about how obviously different and modern this episode is. And one thing that we're kind of neglecting is that, the original show ended in 89. Mm-hmm. And what was it? It was a 16-year gap, right? Is that right? 15, 16-year gap?
Yeah, apart from this episode, yeah.
Right.
And Dimensions in Time.
Christian. And Dimensions in Time.
Dimensions in Time.
But in all seriousness, like and that was 93. So that's actually kind of interesting that you do bring that up now, because it kind of does play in. If Doctor Who didn't end in 89 and it had continued on through the 90s, would the show not have started filming and looking more like this anyway? Or do you think somehow it would have still ended up having that filmed on beta in studio look? Like, would they not have adapted to the times? Because I feel like watching Pertwee's era compared to the 60s, they're vastly different. It's almost like it's a completely different show in many respects, and then I would say, again, once you hit the 80s, the show feels like a different show again.
The problem we've got with that is that in the UK there was no it felt like there wasn't any money to be put into genre TV that wasn't Red Dwarf.
I was going to say, I think Red Dwarf's your only example of them shifting.
Really? I think there's a little bit of Jerry Anderson. I think there was a Jerry Anderson thing, wasn't there?
Oh yeah,
Space Precinct.
Space Precinct. Yeah.
Well, that was definitely an international co-production.
But that was a co-pro. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, there wasn't really anything that would give us a sense of where Doctor Who would have gone outside of, as I say, some of the changes within Red Dwarf, in terms of how it looked.
Yeah.
And certainly by sort of Red Dwarf.
Because it was like 6 or
8.
7 that they went to a
Yeah.
in studio recording look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vastly different. Yeah. Fair point.
But I mean, again, it was nothing to the level of like cinematography and lighting that we've
Oh,
got in
no,
this.
no.
In fact, to be fair, looking at 2005 onwards, I mean, this is cinematic compared to what they were doing, BBC was doing in 2005.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
going to say this is closer to sort of, well, 2013, really.
I mean, the lighting in this is just watching, just just not just the grading everything, but just the points of where they're light, where it's being lit on set. Everything is just so nice.
We never find out, do we, how the Master gets in the TARDIS? I just want to mention that because that scene has happened.
Yeah.
And, Chang Li goes in the TARDIS with the TARDIS key. You don't see the Master anywhere nearby. He walks from the TARDIS, goes into the TARDIS, no sign of the Master. He's into the TARDIS, and the Master's there.
I have a feeling that when Chang went in the first time, walked out and circled, the Master might have just snuck through the doors at that point because the door was then unlocked,
Mm.
But you're right. They don't conclusively tell us, but that's just kind of the one thing I can think there.
I wonder if there was a cut. I wonder if they filmed him slipping in and then looked and went,
maybe
don't need it.
Yeah,
he's just there.
So. I will say too, one thing we should point out, by the way, since we're talking about the lighting and the filming and everything, I don't know if any of the crew actually truly intersected, but this was filmed 95, 94, 95, I think 95, and in Vancouver, which is where the X-Files was filming.
X-Files, yeah.
So part of why this looks kind of as great as it does is because a lot of like the Vancouver film crews out there were so well versed in making US TV or even their own TV. And that's why this looks good, because that's what they used, was a lot of Vancouver film crew. They had the British director, of course, but it's not like they brought everybody in. They used what was there. So this looked very much like what I was used to seeing from the X-Files at the time. Now, obviously, the X-Files has a unique look, so it's not completely identical, but it looks like it's in that same vein.
But you got a lot of blue in the X-Files, haven't you? That was certainly a...
Oh, the use of color in the X-Files is incredible. Yeah, you're right. You do have a lot of the blue. Yeah. I will say I don't even mind this look for the Master. I know it's just regular Earth look, but that leather jacket, like there's no EMT guy that's wearing a leather jacket like standard like that's got the badge on it. You know what I mean? Like they went all out trying to give him some kind of uniqueness. I like the glasses.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying as well about he's in a hurry to get hold of a new body. He knows that one's falling apart. He hasn't got time to put on clothes until the ceremony.
It is kind of weird that they dropped that element that the body is falling apart, because it seems like it would have been a really interesting element, especially because he didn't steal the body the way that he stole the Keeper of Traken or Treemass's body, rather, with the power of the Keeper. The way that he stole it here. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. That's actually one thing that I'm not that keen on with the TV movie, is that when Grace asks, Grace or Chang, I think it's Grace, when he explains how he stole the body, he died and then he became this morph worm, I forget what they call it. There's a term online for it. In any event, the doctor, she says, why can't you do that? And he says, I can, you see, but only when I die. And I'm like, I'm not sure I would have done that. I'm not sure I would have put that line of dialogue in there, because we know that the Master has cheated death multiple times before and has all these tricks and so on from all of his adventures. You know, the Doctor and the Master have been traveling for hundreds of years through time and space on their own, independently of each other. I don't like the concept that if a Time Lord dies outside of regeneration, there's another way that they can steal a body. This seems so much more like something the Master picked up, a trick that he picked up.
Terrence Dicks retconned it in that direction in the Eight Doctors.
Did he?
He did. Basically, there's a scene where the Master eats something, knowing that he's going to be going to his end. He eats this egg of a worm or something that he knows will give him the power to put his soul into the worm. It was something like that. Worm, snake, something like that.
Yeah, and that makes so much more sense. Now, going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, that's a bit too much information to keep feeding in a story that's feeding you too much information as it is. But
The only
I
problem
never.
with that is that I'm getting more and more keen on the idea of the master at the end of Destiny of the Doctors, Ainley's master, being the monsters that he refers to that are taking him away, being the Daleks, and it leading directly into this.
Oh, I see. I see.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All those Doctor Who hearts broken.
There it is.
Yeah.
But you know what? For the first kiss that the Doctor has had on screen, one thing we can say that we can give it above even the new series is that she's a little bit more age appropriate than a lot of the other companions that he's kissed. You know, yeah, sure, there's still a massive age gap there, but at least she's not some teenage girl, you know?
Yeah.
And she's also an equal in title, you know? I
Yeah.
got to be honest too. I don't even remember being bothered by the kiss, and I remember reading online or hearing from other fans how bothered they were, and like it was odd. I knew I didn't need it in Doctor Who, but it didn't offend me.
I think it was a lot of it was tied up in this fear which had been going on since 45 years or so, this notion of American television culture
Oh, right.
co-opting and transforming and what's the better word, tainting what is British,
Yeah.
which was a big fear with ITV back in the 50s.
Because we had shows like Knight Rider and A-Team and Street Hawk and all those sort of like Glenn A. Larson things churned out, and Buck Rogers before that, and they're going out on a Saturday tea time. Not that they're opposite Doctor Who or anything like that, but they appear to be kind of, there's a feeling that American TV shows were disposable, and really you only had things like maybe Columbo, a handful of other shows that had a better sort of cachet to them until the mid-90s, when you've got the X-Files and you've got maybe NYPD Blue as well on Sky, and things where there's shows with a more serious and more, felt like they had more substance to them. And when the shows like that, when those became more prominent, I think then the attitude towards American TV in the UK evolved accordingly. And I think there was always the feeling with making an American Doctor Who that it would feel more like Airwolf than the X-Files, perhaps.
I think to a degree, but I think there was also a fear of, I mean, to some degree, I would argue that this story pays a lot of aesthetic and archetypal qualities to Terminator 2. There's a sense of that, which I think, I mean, not just the CG snake, but you've got a very Terminator-esque master. You've got a chase of a master, of an unstoppable villain.
Yeah.
There are elements there which I think British audiences were, again, scrutinizing, shall we say, or feeling uncomfortable, feeling there was a dilution of what was British in this, which, again, retrospectively, I don't think is horrendously fair, but interesting, I guess.
I mean, that part though, I can at least understand, like, people being afraid that it's going to lose the Britishness, especially with being an American TV show. Because if this had become a series, I mean, they're undoubtedly going to land in in San Francisco quite a bit, New York. Like, it would have geared more toward America. They would have had more American guest stars and actors and so on. So it definitely would have. And while I would have loved for this to become a series, I would have loved to have seen what that became.
Mm-hmm.
I would have missed that Britishness of it myself as a guarantee, because that's one of the things that massively attracted me to Doctor Who. So
I was ready for this to be a series. By the time it came out, I knew it was very unlikely that it would go to a series, but I was happy for there to be more of this.
Oh, I would have loved it. I would have, even if it, that's why I was always so upset that it was just greenlit for a pilot rather than a first series, and then we'll see where it goes, because at least we would have had a full season of him. You know what I mean? Like, forget about however this episode went. Even if this episode went down exactly as we know it right now, but it had a full series off the back end of it, we would have had a full 8 Doctor era regardless. Even if he didn't regenerate at the end, we would have had something. And unfortunately, we were just robbed, because I've gone on before on this channel about how great his Big Finish work is, but McGann truly kills it in Big Finish. His stories are absolutely amazing there, and they really just let me know what we've missed. And
He's a
then when he
brilliant
appears
actor.
again in Night of the Doctor, like, he looks incredible. They should have made a series with that man right then and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
He is a
fascinating.
superb actor. Whenever he turns up in anything, he has I mean, he's playing like a Time Lord, time traveling alien right here, and yet it completely grounds it. Like the size of the role, it's completely grounded and feels real. You watch him with Nell and I, in particular, which I can refer back to mostly because I've watched it over 50 times. He's in the same movie as Richard Griffith and Richard E. Grant, who are both playing these ridiculously over the top characters, and also Ralph Brown as well. His character is ridiculous as well, and he holds it all together. He's the heart of that movie. He's brilliant. I feel I feel he's criminally underrated, to be honest with you. I think he's a superb actor.
I just wonder if they had just simplified this. I know it's, again, as we've talked about through this, it's a very hard thing to do, especially when you're piloting a concept rather than you've got your run. But if they just simplified this a little more, I wonder whether this would have sold better. Because literally the Englishman in New York, well, not New York, but it is that the alien,
Right.
as you say, Brian, if this had all been places around the US, Vancouver style, and you've got this eccentric British lead character, I could see that selling. I could see that working quite well. It's got automatically a hook, it's got a difference, it's got a sense. And I just wonder whether there was just too much they pushed into this that would just not give people a sense of what they'd expect with this next week.
Yeah.
I'd imagine Fox would be along those lines as well.
I would say one thing Russell actually got right, and I feel he's got a lot of stuff right with 2005, of course, but I think one thing he truly nailed was not putting the Doctor in some sort of Edwardian outfit, right? As much as I think Paul looks incredible here, I think trying to sell it to a mass American audience, if you made him look a little more contemporary, it might have even done better just for that alone. I think having it be a British guy that does look Edwardian, has an Edwardian looking time ship, it almost looks a little bit just like the Time Machine, like they're watching an adaptation of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, which is like, what is this odd adaptation of this thing? So as much as I think he looks incredible, I think they could have done a more contemporary thing, and perhaps it would have sold better on that alone. Because there are plenty of shows over here. There was that Lucifer show. Everybody was very hot on that, and that was a British lead. But it was a contemporary setting. I want to talk about this real quick. We just missed one of my favorite things when the Doctor and Grace are arguing, and she's like, oh, I bet you met Madame Curie as well, and he's like, yes, I did, as a matter of fact. She's like, does she kiss as good as me? And the Master chimes in, as well as you. And then the Doctor and Grace both look at him like, and Grace is just pissed. But it's such a wonderful Master moment that he's just sitting there like, I'm in the conversation, but I'm going to correct your grammar as well. Like, I just thought that was such a great, the writer of this, was it Jeffrey Sachs as well? I forget who wrote this. Matthew. Thank you, Matthew Jacobs. Yeah, that was brilliant. I loved how that was done, and Eric Roberts played that perfect. So did Daphne Ashbrook. Speaking of, she just said he's British. I have to throw this out there, the whole half human thing. Right now, that was one thing that I do recall watching this going, oh God, we don't need to do the Spock thing. He doesn't need to be half human. I do recall being upset. I did not need the Doctor to be human to be relatable. And I know that everybody's kind of got this thing, that maybe he is. Russell just flat out ignored it and so on. You have the Master seeing his human retina, saying he's half human. You have the Doctor telling the other Doctor, I forget his name now, that he steals the tag from, that he's half human on his mother's side. I always took the I'm half human on my mother's side to just be an odd distraction so the guy didn't notice that he was stealing his name tag. But I was like, how do you explain away the human retina, right? Like, because obviously they're trying to explain that only humans can open the Eye of Harmony, and the Doctor is only half human. So it seems like Rassilon built this system like, don't worry, Time Lords can't open it because I know what they can do with it, but there is a key, and it's the human race, right? My theory is the Doctor was shot. He ended up in the hospital. He lost a lot of blood, as you do with a gunshot. Whenever you're in a hospital and you lose a lot of blood, they give you O negative blood if they don't know your actual blood type, because it's a universal donor. When the doctor regenerated, that O negative blood turned into human retinas. And that's why the master thinks he's half human. And with the doctors saying that he's half human, the audience also thinks it as well. But I think that explains why the eighth doctor is, quote, half human. He's got these, maybe perhaps something else is human in him as well. And I always thought when he regenerated after that, here's our chase scene. You guys were mentioning that's the Americanized one, which I grant you, it is more American than the Pertwee ones, but Pertwee had them too. But anyway, I think after a few regenerations, he either worked out the human DNA, or when you get to something like Peter Capaldi, where he's like, oh, kidneys, I think he's recognizing I'm feeling these things because these things aren't quite Gallifreyan. So that's always been my theory, that he's not really half human. He just has that human blood that's stuck in him and regenerated with him.
Although if we kept with this series, if this show went to a series, he was definitely half human and his mother was human. And his father was a Time Lord.
No, you're right, though. You're absolutely right. Yeah. But it didn't, Christian.
Okay.
The books retconned it, didn't they? They suggested that there was a previous incarnation of the Doctor, not regeneration, incarnation, which had whose mother, I can't remember what the mother's name was, because
is this the nth? No, the Lung Barrow. Is this the?
Yeah, it's sort of it's not in Lung Barrow, but it's sort of in that timeline of stuff where there was there's another incarnation of the Doctor, whose mother, oh God, it was a Greek god. They played with all the Greek names.
Yeah, they did.
And there was a suggestion that was what was being read, was that legacy, but not this Doctor, which again is like ways of trying to get around this.
Very likely is a hang up of the original version of the script, because when you watch his audition, he was reading a very early version of the script where the Doctor was supposed to be searching for his father, and the Doctor and the Master were brothers, and it did have kind of like Greek connections like that.
Yeah.
So that might actually just be a hang up that still survived, that they meant to weed out and ultimately didn't.
And then sort of Mark Platt and Lance Parkin all went and indulged and tried to make this idea of previous incarnations of this character, which had different backstories, which would sort of help make sense of this.
Here's the bit coming up that I couldn't edit out. It looked like a commercial right here when they got all the balloons, and I swear to God, it was like even like a credit card commercial or something. And then when I saw him and Grace, I was like, no. So for years, I always watched it and always had this odd edit where it would just like pick up here where they're walking away. Oh man, I don't miss those days.
I think the other issue I had with the film, again, is the use of time in it, which felt quite unsophisticated by the mid-90s, the back end of this. And well, obviously we've not got there yet, but the resolution and the use of the Eye of Harmony, and again, felt a little unsatisfying if I was watching this either as a fan or not a fan.
Yeah.
Reset buttons are never popular. And maybe, again, that would be something I would have, if I was there, I'd have been like, don't do that.
I will say it is the one thing about the film that I don't truly understand, right? Usually I can understand how they came to a resolution, how they got this plan to make it fix. And I understand he wanted to go back to before the eye was open, but I don't understand how that fixed it, right? If you went back to before it opened, maybe the plan was there's two TARDISes there, you could sneak in, close the eye before it opened or something. But they didn't do that. They literally just made going back to before it opened fix everything. And so I agree, that's the one kind of unsatisfying twist in it, because while it's fine, I accept it, I don't understand why it worked. And it also presents a problem that never really happened in the show before of, well, we can just use the TARDIS to go fix the problem.
Yeah. Well, it's the Superman the movie problem, isn't it? And I think the Superman the movie, if you overthink it, if you just put a few more moments into thinking about it, that doesn't work either. And it's also the rise of Skywalker we were talking about the other day, James, briefly. Is that the one with the Laura Dern? Is it Laura Dern who plays the sends the ships into light speed through the...
Oh, that's Last Jedi.
Last Jedi, beg your pardon, yeah. I get, and that's the same thing, isn't it? That's something that,
Yeah, we've talked about, yeah.
yeah, it's the
If
same
you
thing.
could
It's
do
something
it, why
that
has no one ever done it? It'd be the most perfect weapon.
exactly, yeah,
You just send a droid with a hyperdrive attached to its back and send it towards a planet or towards a
yeah.
space, you know.
So you're
Why is
short circuiting your own internal
logic? Yeah.
logic and the rules of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only way, I
Nice.
mean, obviously,
This is nice prop work, I have to say.
mm,
Not, in 1996 when I first saw this, the inside of a computer was
yeah.
completely alien to me. Looking at that, that's good work. That.
Mm,
Well, it's funny too. You talk about all the prop work and all the money that they spent into it, right? Like they make that sonic screwdriver and it's beautiful. The functionality, like it pops up, it ejects,
Mm.
and they don't use it.
yeah.
So we talk about everything that they put in here, every little bit of history that they popped in, every Easter egg that they could think to pop in, the TARDIS console room, and the sonic screwdriver. One of the biggest things that people complain is overused, and he doesn't use it till the very end of the story. Well, he uses it, bookends it, the very beginning and the very end,
Mm.
but he doesn't use it to actually do anything to save the day.
It's a bit like the lightsaber in New Hope. Luke gets his lightsaber, he waves it at a remote, and then never uses it for the whole
Never
film.
uses it. Yeah.
It's like, what?
That's
What?
right. That's
Hey,
right.
why? Um, but yeah,
He points it at his own eye.
yes. Oh, he's always a smart lad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if we just ignore the whole timey-wimey mechanics, which
Yeah.
Doctor Who's always been very vague on, I think the only way they could have sold that ending to me and would have felt more like Doctor Who is if going back in time had resolved some of those issues, but Grace or Chang both were dead. They don't come back. You don't
Yeah.
just
Right.
suddenly,
Or they
it
don't
just,
remember him.
there's got to be
sorry.
there's got to be something there. There's got to be some sacrifice
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Oh
that.
man, can you imagine if they went back in time to before the eye was open and the doctor just basically stopped everything from happening, but outside the police box there's a Grace and a Chang that are alive who don't know him because he kind of erased everything, but he's got their two dead bodies in the TARDIS as well because they're from a time that now no longer exists. Like that would be a sad end.
That would make a brilliant out because at the beginning of the show, he's in the TARDIS listening to his music, all alone with his cup of tea. It could end with him in the TARDIS with his cup of tea, with these two dead bodies propped up on chairs next to him, and he's got his tea party.
Weekend of Bernie style.
And he could even look at them and go, cheers, and then look at the camera. And a Merry Christmas to all of you out there as well, And then finish off with, and I turned around and they were all wearing eye patches. Cut to credits. Yeah.
I got to tell you, they're not allowed to use Grace in Big Finish. Although Daphne Ashbrook has done a couple of things, but she doesn't play Grace. She was just in the newest release that came out, and this might be a spoiler for anybody listening. I won't ruin anything what she is, but her character does say to the doctor a couple of times, like, "Well, that would be graceless, wouldn't it?" And it's like they're acknowledging the character still all the same, which I thought was a little bit of fun. But it's such a shame because I would love for these two to have like at least another story where it's the doctor and Grace together. But for some reason, Universal still doesn't allow the character, or maybe the character's too expensive to purchase for the episode or something. Same with Chang Li. He's been in it as well.
Yeah.
Yiji so has been in it, but he's not allowed to be Chang Li. Yet Eric Roberts can be the Master because the Master was on already.
Sure.
There you go. That's the stunt box. You can see it doesn't have the bottom of the box there. That box is so beautiful. I love this.
It's a nice box.
So much.
I am really surprised for this film that they didn't do what they ended up doing after this and sort of backlit the windows of that box, because it feels like the sort of cinematography element that they would have done.
For sure.
I mean, obviously did it with the sign.
Is it not?
Are the windows not on the model lit on real ones?
Hmm?
Sorry, Brian.
In the opening sequence?
What, when it's flying?
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be when it's flying.
I'm pretty sure there's lights from within the windows as well.
We'll find out at the end.
But not when it's sitting there on the
not stationary.
Which is just in the sort of setup. It feels surprised that they just didn't have light sources. That it just feels like they'd have liked it. I think
it's so weird too. So you pointed it out. I didn't really pay attention to it.
I prefer them without. I like it being a sort of like a dead face, but obviously, as I say, in terms of like lighting, it gives you a very strong focus. I think we've also got to say what I think is brilliant, and again, we're going back to the lighting of this stage, is if you actually see it without the lighting, as there are photos out there, it's actually quite sparse, this space. There's like a few back walls, quite a lot of curtain. It's it's really empty, and yet they make it feel so together.
Mm-hmm. And yet it also costs around $2 million to make.
Wow.
Yeah. But you're right. It is just a bunch of walls, and some of those things are my favorite features. Like there's these walls by the library bookshelf. These kind of, I don't know what you call them, these buttresses. I guess I'll use that word again. It's the only thing I can think of. But they're incredible looking. Those are the things I like, because while it looks Jules Verne, it's got those other elements that are absolutely foreign, and it's every angle that you look is great. There's on the DVD there's a tour. Philip Segal does a tour, and you get to see so much more of it. And like you said, it's not lit by studio, so you do get to see more of it. But it's so, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful design.
It's also
Those
weird.
blue columns. Oh,
It's when, again, we talk about how Davis got it right, and to some degrees you wonder if Davis got it right because this got it wrong. Sometimes you need something to go wrong to find the way to do it right. Like, as much as I never particularly liked having police box doors as being your access point, you can understand, especially for a pilot, how that would be really important to really give audiences a sense of what they're coming into and what they're coming out of, which the original show didn't have, but would have sold, I think, the connection between these two spaces so much more than those big, heavy doors that they have in this.
that's a great point, because I mean, obviously he took a lot of inspiration from Buffy and the X-Files, but knowing how this one went down and what didn't succeed, because he did literally do the polar opposite. Like we said, he peppered all the history throughout the season rather than all in one go. So I think you're right. I think he did use this as a guide as what not to do, and also still took things of what to do, because clearly the central column of the TARDIS, obviously that was like, well, we're having that, so he definitely took things. He knew what was good and what didn't work. Got a good eye for that stuff, I think. We got to give him credit for that with the 2005 series.
Yeah. And again, as we've said, he had the fortune of knowing that he had like 12 episodes to play this out in. So he could do what this show really should have done and left the regeneration further back, or as we've said, done a go back to the regeneration in a later episode. You could even pepper in a sort of who is this guy sort of thing within the story that then is revealed to be a past version of him. You could do all that. But in this,
that would have been so neat if they somehow kept like doing flashbacks to the actual Master's trial or something, and then at the end the Doctor dies and regenerates there.
Oh no, we're doing no more trials. We're not doing trials. We're not being defending them.
Fair enough. But at least over a season, that would have worked really well. I will say one other element that I like. I do like this cloister room, and I like it very much because it reminds me of Tom Baker's cloister room. Right? I like the fact that it had those columns, but I like that they have the seal of Rassilon everywhere. It's such a nerd thing to like, but I do actually really like it.
It does become a bit a brand, doesn't it? Almost like the TARDIS is stamped with a brand label when it comes out. It's got to be everywhere.
Well, and it does make sense if it was from the High Council, but it's also weird because like the Rassilon symbol. Well, I guess it's the Rassilon symbol, right? It's not the Prydonian symbol. I was going to say it looks like almost only the Prydonians make TARDISes or something, Will Sasso too. The one thing I do remember watching this was it was so weird seeing Will Sasso in here, because I remembered him from like Mad TV. At least I swear he was on Mad TV before this. Something I knew him somehow, and it was just kind of a weird thing. Like, oh, I know this guy, and I don't usually know people in Doctor Who, till the later years. This is a great outfit. A great kind of update on the Time Lord robes.
You see, again, I know it's easy to say, but this feels like if you'd had, as you say, a 13 or 24 episode run, this end act feels like the back end of a series where you've now explored this character, found out he has multiple lives. I know at the end of the story, we have the antagonist coming to take those lives. It feels like there, where at this point, you're still going to try and get, but it's bigger on the inside, and he's got
and then there's the argument too. that the story for this is literally just the deadly assassin. You have the Eye of Harmony, you have the Master trying to steal the Doctor's lives. It's just the same story, you know. And of course, the argument there is if you have a good idea in life and you fail at it once, you're just never going to touch it again. Of course not. You're going to try again, right? It makes sense, but it is weird that it is legitimately just the deadly assassin over again, just on Earth this time. Also interesting that they went with the Master rather than Daleks, you know, how big of a sell they were in England. You'd think they would cash in.
I wonder if there was a nation state thing to do with that.
I was, someone shared something on Twitter yesterday, maybe it was earlier today, a letter from David Attenborough to Terry Nation concerning his pitch for the Dalek TV show in the late 60s for BBC Two. Because David Attenborough was the controller of BBC Two when it was launched. And he'd been given a good review of it and he was recommended to take it. But he basically said to Terry Nation that I only have like 22 hours a week and I've got them filled for the next 6 months or whatever. So he turned him down.
Oh. Really? Wow, I never heard that. I think there's room for, like, if you were truly trying to do this worlds of Doctor Who, you know, massive spin-offs, I do think there's room for a Dalek series. You know, we do know that the Doctor isn't the only one they've gone up against. And you can't, like, you'd have to make them the villains. Like, you can't make it be a series that strictly follows them. But I think when it comes to worlds of Doctor Who, I think the failing that they did was making Sarah Jane Adventures in Torchwood so far the opposite spectrum of what Doctor Who is. So if you're trying to get people to tune into it, kids can't watch Torchwood, and most adults are going to be like, Sarah Jane's a little too kiddie. You know, if they brought them all kind of more of an even keel.
I think the problem for me was that Davis just seemed, as you said earlier with Doctor Who, was very much inspired by what Whedon had been doing in finding that strong young family teen space, that he could never escape it, because there was just so much in Torchwood which was almost homage to what Whedon had done.
But at the same time, you could argue that Torchwood's more childish than Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough, yeah.
But that's because I don't think he could, or he didn't feel that the market really stepped outside of those sort of spaces. Well, now, you know, if you were to do it now, a Dalek series, if you were to ask me to pitch it, I would do it like Walking Dead or like Colony, something where you are occupied, people occupied by a Dalek empire or on the run from a Dalek empire, and really amp up their threat and have, as we've said before, the rolling cast, as Walking Dead does, where no one is safe, and play that sort of world. But I don't think people would have done that. Certainly in the 60s, they certainly wouldn't have done it even by this point. But I think you're right. I think there's room for the Daleks if done the right way.
I think you're right, too. It would have to be a nobody is safe kind of show, because otherwise, like, the Daleks aren't really the threat that they seem to be. It really has to be, you might have a complete rotating cast, to be honest.
But I do think like show as well, based on, you know, along the same lines of Game of Thrones. All your different Time Lord families.
Interesting, you think? Yeah. I think there's a lot of room for things that could work. It's just there's not a lot of faith that they have that they could work.
They do tend to hold on to things that they already have, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, like Sea Devils, Silurians.
Here's another thing in this. So I was just going to say another thing with the pilot here that bugs me in terms of trying to sell is the TARDIS lands, doesn't move again. And you'd think if you're trying to sell what this show is about and this thing that's mobile through time and space, and that is the thing for kids that they love seeing this thing disappear and reappear in somewhere incongruously. Why is that not in here? You'd think that would be something, that would be one of the key things I'd have on my board, my whiteboard of things that this has got to have in the script. The TARDIS has got to move. We've got to see that move, preferably in time, maybe, but certainly in space, because kids will love that. The sonic screwdriver, like you said, Brian, kids will love that.
Absolutely. Well, it's like the Millennium Falcon. At any time Han Solo gets in there, smashes a panel, and they fly away. Yeah.
It's these small things which really hook people in. which would probably mean you've had to reject a lot of this. But I don't know. I think you could have still done the same story. It just have to be, yeah,
Well, we probably should have seen the TARDIS take off here
Yeah.
yeah,
rather than just that shot, right? We
Fade to
should have seen
white.
it actually
Yeah.
take off, get into the vortex, fly, And then you would have also had the companion actually doing that, even if she didn't know what she was doing. That's another thing people really like, the companion's taking an active participation in the story, which is great. I'm not arguing that. I think they should. Matter of fact, I've been rewatching Pertwee's first season, and you'd think that Liz as a scientist would get more things to do as a scientist, and she does, but not as much as you think at first, I love the time vortex because what I like is that you can see space through it. I think that's such a fascinating idea. Like it's such a great way to depict it. Matter of fact, I think it's probably the best vortex we've gotten, even out of the new series as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it makes it feel more organic as well. While the stuff we've had in the new series all the way through has felt very, what would be the word? Almost mathematical in its.
Yeah. I think that's a very good word for it. Yeah. Geometric.
Yes, geometric, mathematical,
Yeah.
a process
Mhm.
rather than a sense of something existing somewhere.
Oh, this breaks my heart. I love Grace. I mean, it's Daphne Ashbrook, as we talked about before, but man, that fall looked real. You know what I mean? Like that's a hell of a stunt they did there.
I mean, again, if you think of this, it's just trying to. It's what you always say to people, especially to fans. You've got to remember that while you want to see this, this is being made for an audience of people who have never seen this before because they'll be in the majority. And
Right.
trying to imagine watching this as an audience who's never seen Doctor Who before, it's absolutely batshit. By this point at the end now we're in sort of gothic battle in this temporal something or other with a guy who's dressed in what could almost be described as almost quite queer looking outfit, quite camp is perhaps the word we would use. It just doesn't, it's very, very shifted.
It's weird because it's like the X-Files was basically dominating TV at this point. And if you had tried to make a show that was a little bit more geared in that fashion, I think people would have latched on board. But it almost feels like they're latching a little bit more to the audience that eventually Buffy would have created, because you're right, it is a little hokey in the end here. But that is an extremely fair point. The 2005 show was made for a broad audience rather than just the fans, but there was enough for us that we knew. Whereas this definitely seems like it's a love letter to the fans. It's what? I'm sorry?
Sorry, it's a bit Raiders of the Lost Ark, the ending there as well.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's a good thought. I never really considered that.
Yeah.
Then the calm.
Look at that shot. That's such a great shot. Just the broken Rassilon head there. God, I love that stuff. Got to give it to Jeffrey Sachs on that.
Rewatching it now with you two is, I found myself really appreciating the not just the cinematography, but also just like the editing as well.
Windows are lit there, but go on.
Yeah, you're right.
Didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue.
No, absolutely. But
the leaves, like that level of the set right there, like the cloister room being that real. I love the fact they had like bats or something flying around the ceiling. And in the audio dramas, they retcon that and they call them these creatures called flater shrew. And the doctor just says that they just got in one day and he doesn't mind, that he likes the company kind of thing. And I like that they acknowledge that stuff. But it looks real, right? Like this is a studio set, but this looks like a real Gothic building. The leaves just add so much to it.
I mean, funnily enough, in a weird way, again, we talk about retconning, and in a sense, how future stories, as you were saying earlier, almost retcon how you understand this story. And we've seen that if you take Parting of the Ways, where you have the TARDIS kind of bringing life, the TARDIS has its own sense of there's something going on there which is under the hood, which we see in this one now, with the revivification of our two characters here. While at the time that just felt very hokey. Well, now watching it, and it's now sort of almost established in the lore that there is that sort of temporal fizz within the TARDIS. It doesn't seem quite as hokey now.
No. Well, you also have another element that kind of gets repeated throughout the new series, and that is the death and resurrection of the companions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Rose's death was an artificial death, she got locked in another universe. Who else? You had Amy and Rory. They died. Bill died. Clara died, but they all came back.
I think you've got to slow down there. Amy and Rory died many times. We've got to.
Yes.
Amy and Rory, Amy and Rory,
yes.
Rory. Then we can move
far too many times. Yes. But I mean, Clara died, and then she has this whole life after death. She's even given a TARDIS, which she can inexplicably know how to fly.
Yeah, Bill.
They've gone too far. So this show created the first Doctor Companion kiss, the first companion's death, resurrection. What else? It created a whole hell of a lot.
Doctor and mature companion.
Doctor and mature companion.
I mean, this is right.
I mean, she's closer to sort of like Donna's sort of age, isn't she? So
yeah,
she's the most mature.
We could argue
companion
Liz.
since Liz, maybe, or certainly since Romana.
I mean, this is very much early prestige TV. We're not there yet, but we're seeing the sort of building blocks of where things are becoming a little more mature. Story writing and cinematography and editing is all coming together more. I mean, I can't think of. I know we've all stopped for the.
No, go ahead.
You can see how the new series feels like it's building on this, because this is almost like the early building blocks of where television was going.
Yeah.
Which was, again, no one likes to give credit to Fox, and for lots of different reasons, but Fox very much starts this narrow band rather than narrowcast approach that creates this sort of more sophisticated, funneled way of doing television, especially fantasy dramas, rather than the broadcast
maker or any TV maker. Like, they credit the X-Files with the birth of modern TV, and that was a Fox thing. Yeah. Jeffrey Sachs is apparently they're doing the 4K and Blu-ray release from the remastered prints of this, like we talked about at the beginning. But Jeffrey Sachs is also talking about potentially doing a widescreen edit as well, which sounds fascinating. But like, the X-Files did this, right? The first 4 seasons of the X-Files were aired 4:3, but they were shot on 35 millimeter film, and they planned ahead. They knew from the get-go that TV shows are going to go 16:9. So they were able to convert them to 16:9 later on by not losing too much data. Right. I don't think this was like this shot here. I don't think this was, I if he can do it, I'd like to see it, but I don't know if they projected for the future.
Just laughing, going back to what you were saying, Brian, at the back end of here, he goes, oh, my sonic screwdriver, thank you. And the audience are going, why? What? It's a screwdriver. What? Why? What? Well, we don't even see you use it. Why?
Yeah. And we also have I forgot about the future nods, where he keeps knowing everybody's things. I prefer to think of that with him in the same way that Tom Baker was able to karate chop a brick in half. It was just this post regeneration sense or extra strength that he had until the regeneration settled down, and then he doesn't have it anymore. But rather than it being actual future knowledge.
But then you get this sort of notion, again, going back to the very smart writing of Davis, in Rose with Eccleston, where he talks about, hold my hand, this is what I feel. That his senses and his understanding of time and space is so much more nuanced and profound.
Yeah.
Maybe there are points, especially new series here onwards, where the Doctor does do those sort of kind of things.
Yeah. Well, Sylvester McCoy, certainly. Yeah.
And McCoy, absolutely.
Yeah, he played on it before,
And we missed the TARDIS landing, the only proper TARDIS landing in this whole story.
Yeah. And it's good too. I watch when it takes off. I like the effect that they do. They give more than just a fading effect.
It's just,
which I know that was something they really tried to figure out for the 2005 series.
It's just such a, the police box is such a gimmick, and they just don't use it. That is, one of the key things which makes this show unusual, and it's bookends a story rather than sort of feel like how this would be within a story.
Do you know, it's amazing because, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the whole, I mean, we did it early on. You see the TARDIS flying in towards Earth, then you see the TARDIS flying away from Earth, and then the next time Doctor Who's on TV, we get a zoom in to London.
Oh, right, yeah.